Ranger Veteran is one of the most overlooked carriers in all of Vermintide. You can easily compare him to Huntsman. Both of them are ranged characters with access to invisibility, and their weaponry is very similar, with some examples being literal equivalents of each other. The main difference is that Huntsman is pretty much locked into one playstyle, a special sniper with boss killing potential. Ranger is much more versatile than that, thanks to his talents and his ranged weapon choices. You can make him into a special hunter by equipping it with a handgun or the crossbow and just shutting down disabler's before they even become a problem, an actual plunger with the help of your Grudge-Raker that can literally unclog a tight corridor filled with trash, or even a pretty decent boss DPS with a Masterwork Pistol in hand. On top of that, he can buff the whole team with Veil, giving them damage resistance and attack speed, spawn potions and bombs for them, as well as provide the most consistent source of ammunition in the entire game. I'd argue that he's the strongest carrier Bardin has access to, and yet Slayer's getting all the attention for some reason. Well, it's time to shine the spotlight on top of them. Let's start off with the basics. Ranger's main passive is that whenever a special dies, be it at your hand or by your teammate's hand, an ammo pouch materializes out of thin air underneath him, restoring 10% of the total ammo pool of the person that picked it up. This can be further increased to 30% with the level 20 growing scanning talent. This lets you offset some of your weapon's ammo hunger issues, and it's mainly gonna help you personally. Most range carriers have their own ways to replenish ammunition, with the exception of Bounty Hunter, who can only do that through weapon trades like Scrounger. Huntsmen are gonna generate their own ammo with Shotcrafter, unless you steal their kills, and also wizards are most likely gonna use weapons that don't require it to begin with. I'm pretty sure that Sienna mains don't even notice that we're on the team. But then again, there's like 2 of them in existence, so these ammo pouches are gonna be really valuable to your melee frontliners though, surprising as it is, and that's because they only carry half of the amount that their ranged counterparts do. They also don't have any way to generate ammunition on their own. The rest of the passives are pretty standard for a ranged character. You carry 50% more ammo and you reload faster. You also have a 10% chance not to waste a consumable upon use, although it's such a low chance that I wouldn't rely on it too much. I still get surprised or even straight up fail to notice whenever it happens. As I've said before, Ranger has access to invisibility. Compared to Shader Huntsman, his one is really specific. For starters, it doesn't trigger immediately after hitting F, instead Bardin does a little animation of throwing a smoke bomb at its feet. This can fuck you over when you're in the middle of a hop trying desperately to get out, so make sure that you push away your enemies before you commit. Upon throwing it, a big ass circle appears around you. This is the range in which you can move while still being invisible. It's pretty restricting, so if you don't like being forced to stay in this area, you can take the level 30 surprise guest talent to be able to move freely. If you're comfortable with being inside your safety circle, you can either make it buff you and your teammates or be granted 1 free bomb throw after using your ult. You also do more damage with your ranged weapon, and you're able to pierce super armor while invisible, no matter which level 30 talent you chose. Invisibility, even by itself, is ridiculously good on a ranged carrier. It allows you to quickly snipe a trouble in special areas around it and can serve as a get out of jail free card when everything else failed. Just remember that you're not playing Shade, you can't pass through enemies while invisible. You can still smack them around the head though and use the opportunity to farm THP. Now that we've gone over the passives, it's time to talk about what our talents do. First off, our THP generation talent. Just in case you're a completely new player, THP means temporary health. Every single carrier in the game has access to 2 different THP talents at level 5 and 1 useless one which you should never take. Maybe with an exception. Just maybe. Anyway, temporary health is very important, as it allows you to refill your health in the middle of a fight by just hitting stuff. Think of it as if your character is building up adrenaline. Ranger can either pick THP on staggering an enemy, or on cleaving through multiple opponents. Both are pretty decent options, and you should choose them depending on which melee you bring, which we'll get to later down the line. Moving on, level 10 doesn't leave us much choice. Master of Improvisation outclasses every other talent in this line, unless you're using throwing axes. And don't worry, we'll get to them. What it does is, every time we reload, our smoke bomb's recharge time gets cut down by 2 seconds. This works better with some weapons over the others, but considering that Bardin's smoke bomb takes 2 minutes to recharge, which is the longest time that a carrier skill can take to refill, you really wanna take this talent with you no matter what your ranged choice is, as long as you can reload it. So, everything except for throwing axes. Got it. On level 15, you should almost always take Enhanced Power. This talent simply boosts the power of our weapons, which means we do more damage, penetrate more enemies with one attack, and we stagger them more. It's a superior choice for a ranged career, as the other two choices don't affect our ranged weapon. That being said, if you wanna make a melee-based ranger, for whatever reason, choose mainstay. Levels 20 to 30 offer us the most interesting choices. On level 20 you can choose Drunken Brawler if you wanna buff your teammates with ale, Grungy Scanning if you wanna tame the ammo hunger of some of your weapons, or Scavenger to provide your team with bones and potions. The last one of the bunch isn't really as useful as the other two, with one exception. Fortunes of War. This map has a limited amount of consumables, so just being able to spawn them every now and then can help your team out, especially with the amount of specials that spawn there. Outside of Fortunes though, a Grail Knight can spawn guaranteed strength potions after your team kills enough enemies and completely outclasses you on the campaign map and in Chaos Wastes. Level 25 gives you 2 really good choices and 1 bad one. Movement speed is obviously the black sheep of the bunch, so you should never take that. Exuberance gives you a flat 30% damage reduction when taking damage from behind, and after scoring a headshot, be it with your ranged weapon or a melee weapon, you get that buff applied for all damage taken for a couple of seconds. This solves the issue of being a squishy 100 base health character and prevents you from smashing your disc to pieces after getting backstabbed by one fucking goddamn rat who always magically spawns behind you somehow, just... The other choice is Firing Fury. This lets you shred HOTS and lets you deal with elites mixing HOTS better, but only works well with 2 weapons, the Grudge-Raker and the Crossbow. We'll talk about each of them later on. On level 30 we always get a talent that's gonna affect our career skill. All 3 choices here are perfectly viable and depend on our build and playstyle. The first choice, Vapors, gives us and our allies extra attack speed and THP regen if they're standing in our smoke bomb. This is really useful when paired with the Grudge-Raker and Masterwork Pistol and can occasionally give a teammate with 1 health some room for error for the next fight. Surprise Guest lets us abandon our safety circle while still maintaining our buffs and invisibility. This talent lets you stray from your team to hunt down a special or an objective safely on your own and get back to them afterwards. Like in this clip, I didn't really have a good way to do boss damage, I only had a Shade and a Grail Knight to deal with it anyway, so instead I sneaked past it, staggering it for my team, killed 2 specials and got rid of some trash that would be annoying for them to deal with. It's a really good choice if you've been playing a lot of Huntsman or Shade, or wanna play a bit more aggressively. Ranger Spouting Gift is our third choice. What it does is, upon using your ult, you get a little buff next to your character icon. While this is active, the next bomb that you throw won't be consumed, essentially giving you a free bomb throw. In my opinion this falls a little short in campaign as bombs aren't that useful. Where this talent really shines is in Chaos Wastes. Once you get a Mogrin's bomb in your hands, there's nothing to stop you. Well, except for a rampart boss of course. Still, this is a really fun way to play and you should definitely try it out sometime. Especially since this doesn't really change your playstyle that much. Now that we've gone over every important talent, it's time to talk about our weapon choices. We're gonna go over the ranged ones first, then we'll talk about our melee options, and then we're gonna finish it off with some builds for you to try. The handgun is the most straightforward, easy to use ranged weapon in the game. Period. You click on an elite or special enemy and it dies. Usually. You don't need to worry about breakpoints as much as with the other weapons when using it, and that means that it's a good choice for Chaos Wastes. The main problem with it is just how slow it can feel to use it. It takes ages to aim in fully, and with the hipfire inaccuracy you would have trouble hitting the broadside of a bomb. This is really problematic when you're desperately trying to save a teammate from a gut run in the middle of a fight. Like, seriously, I've cursed many times for leaving my crossbow back at the keep. If you want to make the most of it DPS wise, it's better to use it on Huntsman, as you can turn it into an amazing boss killing weapon. On Ranger Veteran it's my go-to if I want to let my teammates get absolutely smashed with ale. Because of its ammo efficiency you can safely skip out on groggy scanning and take the ale talent instead. You're gonna be producing a lot of it throughout the whole map, as the handgun makes sniping specials trivial. As long as you have time to breathe, that is. If the handgun is too slow for you and you're fine with aiming for the head, the crossbow is gonna be a better choice. This is hands down my favorite weapon on Ranger. It's got a faster reload, more ammo, faster ADS time, better accuracy and better hot clear than the handgun. The trade-off is that on Cataclysm you've got to aim for the head if you wanna kill most specials and leads, the only exceptions to this being assassins, warp fire throwers and rattling gunners. This isn't that bad of a downside considering the sheer versatility the weapon provides, as well as the fact that the 3 enemies that you can one-shot body shot are the ones that are usually the most problematic. This weapon's hipfire can only direct your bot horizontally, making it way more predictable and responsive than the handgun. That makes it way more consistent, which is something that I value dearly. The massive heads of leeches and blightstormers make it super easy to get rid of them too. And it's just fun to aim into one of their heads while they're monologuing and pull the trigger and hear that satisfying pa-chink! You can still use it as a handgun and reserve it for sniping specials while bringing Exuberance and Ale with you, but I prefer maxing out my ammo efficiency and reload speed with bringing Scanning and Firing Fury instead, and just spamming bolts into crowds. This makes killing multiple elites mixed into hordes a breeze, and you can chain headshots really quickly thanks to the fast reload that Firing Fury provides. It's also amazing against hook rats, which tend to grab teammates through hordes. They become a bit more squishy due to the lack of damage resistance, but I tend to avoid getting hit enough to fire this build more. This is my second favorite weapon for Ranger, and the best horde clear weapon in the game. Unlike the Drake gun, it doesn't obscure your team's vision and doesn't overheat, meaning that you can sustain your fire better as long as you've got the Firing Fury talent. It's got 2 shots compared to the Blunderbuss's 1, and it's got better pellet spread than Victor's Griffinfoot, making it infinitely better at killing specials and berserkers. Most of all though, you're using it on a carrier that can sustain its weapon's ammo hunger, which is by far the biggest problem it has. Because of its specialized use, I wouldn't suggest bringing it into most matches, especially quick play where you don't know what your teammates will be running. But on the right map, with the right team composition, oh, this is where the fun begins. This weapon is really overrated. It's made for 2 things: wiping out storm vermin and shredding bosses. This is easily the best weapon for monster DPS Bardin has, with the exception of the Troll Hammer, but Ranger Veteran doesn't have access to it anyway. I've heard many people say that this is the best weapon Bardin has, and even that it's overpowered. But the thing is, the downsides that it has make it into a really specialized weapon. Its damage fall-off and accuracy makes sniping distant blightstormers and raftlings a real pain in the ass compared to the handgun or crossbow, especially in the middle of the horde where it's the most crucial to take them down. The assassins are gonna be your biggest sniper because of the shot delay. It cannot pierce super armor unless you've either used your ult or drank a strength potion, so case warriors and standard bearers are left to your melee or teammates most of the time. There are just so many situations where you feel helpless with this weapon in hand, and the worst part is, there's multiple carriers that are way better at monster DPS that you could ever be with a Weak Pistol, like Bounty Hunter, Shade, or even an Engineer with the Troll Hammer equipped, as you can stunlock bosses, making it really easy for a team to deal with them. With the Masterwork Pistol, the boss is gonna be running rampant the entire time. Just like with the Grudge-Raker, I don't recommend bringing this weapon into quick play. Adjust to your team's needs and make sure that it's a good idea to whip out the clock. This is the worst weapon Bardin as a whole has access to, no questions asked. They have terrible breakpoints and an awful throwing arc. For some reason you do less damage by aiming too, but the throwing arc gets better? I don't know why they exist, honestly. The only real use they have is on Slayer, since this is the only ranged weapon he's allowed to use, but even then they're so bad that you'd be better off just using 2 different melee weapons. Also for whatever reason to do a lot of friendly fire. There's one secret way to use them on a ranger though. But you need to promise me something before I tell you the forbidden knowledge. Never, ever bring this build into Cataclysm. Alright, I trust you with this. So, the secret Krabby Patty formula is Melee Ranger. It's not good at all, but it's memey as hell, and sort of fun once you get the hang of it. Basically, you take Last Resort and a versatile melee weapon with you like dual hammers. You throw your axes away and use the extra power to shred through unarmored hordes. Since you're not using ammunition at all, you can take Ale to double up on the memes. The axes themselves are pretty bad even on Legend, although there are some tricks that can help you with them equipped. For example, with Conservative Shooter you can throw your axes infinitely without having to pick them up, as long as you keep hitting the head. It can be pretty decent on most bosses, and especially trolls. It's not easy at all though. With Last Resort, your last axe gets the damage bonus upon throwing it out, so if you can cycle it with a Conservative Shooter you can do some serious damage in a short amount of time. Also you can spam X to reset the inspecting animation so that it does a little spin. Makes taking them with you bearable. These were all of the ranged weapons Ranger has access to. Let's do a top 3 for his melee choices and go over some builds straight afterwards. The one-handed hammer is the weapon that I've used the most personally. It's got more stamina than the other one-handed melees, it's got a really good dodge and can still pump out some damage. With opportunist and 20% power versus chaos, it can stagger chaos warriors out of most of their attack animations and cataclysm with heavy attacks. The only exception to this being their overhead attacks. The big stagger part means that we get a lot of THP with Roots running deep equipped. Splaying push attacks against HOTS not only provides a lot of CC but also fills our health bar really quickly. The attack combinations go as follows. Against HOTS and for THP generation you want to spam push attack into 2 light attacks. Once you hit low stamina, I recommend blocking and dodging until you get enough stamina to start spamming again. Although if you're backed into a corner and need something quick, do the first 2 light attacks and block cancel to go again. Against elites and bosses you wanna spam heavy attacks for maximum stagger and damage. I'll be honest, I used to hate shielded weapons with a burning passion before I came back to Vermintide this month. But after learning ANS's combos and putting it into practice, I fell in love. This is the slower, more tanky option compared to the one-handed hammer. You sacrifice your dodge, elite damage and movement speed while blocking for a shield bash and additional block cost reduction, which means that you can basically block forever, even with the base version of your weapon in Chaos Wastes. You also have a lot of stagger in your hands, meaning that you can generate a ridiculous amount of THP with the right talent. You can also stagger berserkers out of all of their attacks by just pushing them with the right breakpoints. It's really good. As for the attack combinations. You can loop push into shield bash to get THP and control the HOD at the cost of stamina. This allows you to stagger most of the elites in the game. If you actually wanna kill the HOD, use either push into shield bash into heavy, or just shield bash into heavy if you're low on stamina. Fighting elites requires you to get into a loop of sorts, which allows you to do really good sustained damage. It drastically slows you down though, so make sure that you've got the space to pull this off. The loop goes as follows. Light into heavy, and then you just repeat light, heavy, until your target is either dead or out of reach. If you don't have enough time, you can just spam light attacks. All of your attacks except for the shield bash pierce armor, by the way. I'll be honest, I don't like dual hammers. They're just boring. You left click on the HOD, mix in some pushes every now and then, and you use heavy attacks on elites. There, I didn't even need to make a separate category for the combos. That being said, they're easily the best melee weapon that Bardin has against HOTS, and I couldn't avoid talking about them in this video. They don't actually do that much stagger compared to the 2 previous options, so running THP on cleave is better from them. You can use them if you really don't wanna bother with learning the combos for the other weapons, but man, are you missing out on the satisfaction. These were the 3 melee weapons that I recommend the most for a ranger. Don't be mad if I skipped your favorite weapon, I just had to do a top 3 for the sake of time. This guide is long enough as it is. Without going too deep into the other choices, I can safely recommend using the Cog Hammer, Hammer and Shield, and the Great Hammer if you know how to time heavy attacks. The rest of them either don't work well on Ranger, or I just don't have enough experience with them. Now let's combine everything we know and make some builds, shall we? This is the obligatory handgun build. You can either take the axe and shield or the one-handed hammer with you, depending on whichever you like more. These are the breakpoints we're trying to reach to allow our handgun to one-shot storm vermin and bestigos in the body, as well as all the specials as long as they're in our effective range. We're taking health and BCR on our necklace as well as buckskin to make us more tanky combined with the exuberance talent. We're also taking proxy on our charm, and our trinket gives us shrapnel, crit chance and stamina recovery. Because we're using the handgun, we can safely take Drunken Brawler for the ale, and surprise guests to be more aggressive with our positioning, also giving us some clutch potential. This is our best anti-monster build. We're of course gonna take the Masterwork Pistol with us, with the barrage rate to pump out as much damage as we can in a short amount of time. We're taking Grogny Scanning to compensate for this weapon's ammo hunger, and Exhilarating Vapors to buff our attack speed on top of the extra damage that the smoke bomb provides us. Hey, would you look at that, I've actually pronounced it correctly. Your melee weapon doesn't matter that much, just pick what you like more. I prefer taking the hammer for the dodge distance to kite bosses more easily. This is especially useful against rat ogres if you know how to make them loop their attacks. Again, we're taking health, BCR and buckskin on our necklace, the breakpoints we need stay the same as with the handgun build, and we still take the same properties on our trinket. This build revolves around the Grudge-Raker. We combine it with axe and shield specifically to gain some serious crowd control. This build is really good at holding a corridor shut and not letting anything get past you. You can also serve as a tip of the spear and push through tight spaces filled with holes and elites if you're a tank. Just remember that you don't have the help of one. It's really good on specific maps with a specific team comp, although you're gonna struggle against armored enemies and bosses, so don't bring this into quick play unless you get to see what your team is gonna bring in the keep before you get into action. We're still taking health and BCR, but this time we're swapping out Buckskin for Boon of Shalia. Without Exuberance, Buckskin isn't as useful, and it's better to take the increased healing to get out of the health threshold where you can go down in one hit easier. If you're a big fan of Natural Bond, you can take it instead. Here are the percentages we're trying to reach. Our charm remains the same. The two true weapons of a real ranger are the hammer and the crossbow. This loadout is a more mobile version of the Thunderer build. You got a better dodge and better accuracy, but you have less staying power and you have to aim for the head. You can also whittle down HODs from a distance with your firing Fury crossbow, and multiple elites mixed in with the HOD are no longer a problem because of a rate of fire. You still struggle with bosses, but they're not your job to begin with. Just like last time, we're taking Boon of Shalia with us due to the lack of Exuberance. You can also take Natural Bond if you'd like. Here are the percentages again. And that would be it. The video basically ends here. If you made it this far, then thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. People like you make it worth it to go through so much effort to post stuff on YouTube. If this project gets enough attention, then I'll make one for every Bardin career. I'd love to turn this into a series. I don't know which one I'll go over next, but if you'd like me to talk about Ironbreaker, or Slayer, or Engineer next, please let me know in the comments. Leaving a comment with some feedback is much appreciated too. Tell me what you liked about the video, or tell me if you disagree about something. Leaving a comment helps the channel grow and also directs me in the right way. For now, I'm gonna need a small break from editing altogether. The next video will most likely be another compilation, but that's probably not gonna come out until next week, or even later. We'll see how it goes. For now, once again, thank you. This has been Xray, signing off.